Everybody who laid eyes on this giant bull was completely shocked and amazed by its size, but not the auctioneer who was tasked with selling the animal. He was mostly just concerned and had his suspicions about what had happened to this animal. And those suspicions were so concerning that he ended up calling the police about it. And how right he was in doing this. Farmer Jason had no idea that the auctioneer had discovered his big secret, and when he came to the auctioning off of his bull that afternoon, he was just very excited about all the money he was going to make from the sale. When he arrived, there were multiple police officers waiting at the auction house. When Jason realized that they were there for him, he tried to get back into his car and sped off, but he was arrested before he could take another step. But how could this particular bull be so incredibly big? What was Jason's secret, and how had the auctioneer found out about it? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The animal was huge, no one could deny that. As soon as people entered the auction, all eyes were on the bull. However, while most people were in complete awe of the size of the bull, there was one person who looked at it more curiously. What could this bull be, and who did it belong to? Jason was a farmer who'd been operating for a few years. He was the owner of the huge bull and was very excited to sell it at the auction. After all, a bull of this size was sure to bring in a lot of money. But how did the bull get this big? Jason had the secret, but he wasn't going to tell. Jason looked at his bull with pride. He did have a secret for making it so big, but he was tight-lipped, and anyone else who knew was sworn to secrecy. This didn't stop the other farmers at the auction from asking questions. After all, the bull was twice the size of any other bull there. As much as the other farmers begged to know the secret, Jason kept quiet. The farmers talked amongst themselves, wondering if maybe he'd fed the bull special food, or maybe the bull was given some extra vitamins. Everyone wanted to know, but only a few would get to know Jason's great secret. Those who did know promised to keep quiet. This wasn't because it was an awesome secret, but rather an awful one. People who knew regretted asking, because if Jason and his secret were caught, it would look bad on all of them. No, everyone had to keep quiet, or they'd all be in trouble. Because of the terrible secret that they all kept, no one wanted to take the bull anywhere or show it to anyone. They figured that they could take the bull, maybe take its meat, and call it a day. After all, a bull of such size should bring a lot of meat. That's why everyone was terribly surprised when Jason gave them the news. Jason had decided to bring the giant bull to the auction. Just like the others, he knew that a bull of such size would be valuable. But he didn't want the meat from the bull. He wanted the cash that the bull could bring in from the auction. But why would Jason take such a risk? Was he really that greedy? Those who knew his secret of enlarging the bull begged him to change his mind. After all, if they were caught, it would mean punishment for them all, and the meat would be just as valuable from a bull so big. Why wouldn't he take the meat instead of the cash? As it was, Jason's eyes were blinded by dollar signs, and he was determined to go to the auction and take the big bull with him. It didn't matter how much his peers begged him. He couldn't be brought away from the idea of how much money he was going to make. And he was looking to make a lot. The local auction house was incredibly surprised to see Jason's bull pull up on the day of the auction. The auction house handled almost all livestock auctions in the state, so it wasn't surprised by much, but Jason's bull was different, and everyone could see that right away, which immediately brought lots of interest to the animal. As a seller, Jason didn't have to give a lot of information about his bull before selling it. He told the auction house the age and weight of the bull, and while most people explained their situation, Jason kept quiet. He couldn't let any more people know his secret, especially not the auction house. But what was his secret? The auction house workers didn't know. Instead, they double-checked Jason's information. They first checked the age of the bull, which lined up with Jason's answer, but they knew for sure that they had to check the weight. The bull was gigantic, and the workers weren't sure they even had a scale big enough. No one in the auction house had seen something like this, and no one could believe the number on the scale. Surely it had to be broken. They tried again on another scale and got the same large number. Finally, they contacted Jason, and he told them that it was correct. His bull was the heaviest bull they'd ever had. What to do now? As it was, the workers at the auction house didn't know quite what to do. Should they okay the bull for sale or send it back? Was the bull okay? It was just so big. The auctioneer called the owner of the auction house, and together they took a look at the bull. And they finally came to an answer. Both the auctioneer and the owner of the auction house were incredibly curious about the bull. They okayed the bull to go to sale, but the auctioneer still had a fascination with the creature. Unknown to Jason, the auctioneer was starting to figure out Jason's secret. But would it be in time? Jason brought in the bull for a final inspection, and once again all eyes were on his bull. They had arranged it so the bull would have a full day of inspection since it was so big. Everyone was eager to get a closer look, but especially the auctioneer. What would he find? Jason smirked as they examined his bull again. The auction house owner repeatedly told Jason that he was sure to get a good amount of money for the animal, which made Jason very happy. The owner couldn't help himself and also asked Jason how he'd done it. How had he made the bull so big? Jason refused to tell, but the auctioneer was looking at the bull closely. He listened to the owner and Jason talking about all of the cash they were going to make. Jason was going to take home a great amount, while the owner would get a large commission. It seemed too good to be true. The auctioneer kept taking in the bull's size, weight, age, height, and more. He looked at almost every inch of the bull before he was finished. Jason wrote it off as the auctioneer being overly curious, but he should have been worried. After all, Jason's secret was about to come out. There was something incredibly wrong with this bull, and the auctioneer knew it. He'd had his suspicions from the first time he'd seen the bull, but now that he'd gotten to spend a lot of time with it, he knew for sure this bull was not right, and Jason was beyond suspicious. Now, what would the auctioneer do? The auctioneer decided to be clever. He decided that he couldn't let Jason know that he knew Jason's secret. Instead, he joined the owner and Jason in their conversation and congratulated Jason on a wonderful animal. He promised Jason that his bull would definitely bring in money, and that was all Jason needed to hear. Jason said his goodbyes and left the bull at the auction house, planning on coming back the next day for the sale. Once everyone was gone, the auctioneer got to work. He knew what he had to do, but he also knew he had to be careful. If anyone suspected him, things could get messy very quickly. Firstly, the auctioneer knew that he shouldn't try to solve this problem by himself. He needed backup. While the police would be the logical answer, he wanted to be more discreet. Luckily for the auctioneer, he had a friend who consulted for the police from time to time, and he was just the man for the job. His friend Nick came to the auction house that night. The auctioneer was waiting eagerly for him. He explained that he hadn't wanted the police to be directly involved yet, as he needed advice on what to do, but he was sure that something was wrong with this bull. Now he just needed Nick to see it. The auctioneer walked Nick into the auction and straight toward the bull. But Nick didn't want to go near it. He was scared of the bull's massive size and was sure that it might get angry and stomp on him. The auctioneer calmed him down and began to explain his findings. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Nick knew a lot about police work, but his knowledge of animals was so limited that he had no idea what was going on. He wasn't sure what to think about the bull, but he knew that his friend was a professional auctioneer who knew what he was doing. But the story just sounded too unbelievable to be true. The first thing he did was ask the auctioneer for any of the paperwork about the bull. He thought maybe he could find clues in Jason's records. Before he could do anything with the police, Nick needed solid evidence that there was something wrong. Slowly, he started to read through the documents. Just as the auctioneer had done by calling him, Nick decided that he needed an opinion he could trust. One of his friends, Jesse, was a veterinarian who worked with livestock. He figured that she could help him decipher what the documents were talking about. He couldn't risk asking anyone else. Jesse was more than willing to help, but she wondered why Nick was calling with such an unusual request. He didn't want to give any details to her until she arrived, so she hurried over to meet him. It sounded like it was important. She had no idea that what she would find would be nothing short of shocking. The auctioneer showed Jessie to an empty room where she could think without distractions. He wanted to keep her as calm as possible because he knew that what he was about to show her was unbelievable. He handed her the documents and pictures. Seeing the bull in person would have been too much. At first, Jessie thought the pictures were a prank, but Nick and the auctioneer convinced her they were real. The bull's enormous size was shocking, unlike anything Jessie had imagined. Insisting on seeing it in person, she was taken to the barn. Seeing it up close confirmed there were no tricks. It was real. She carefully examined its unusual features, noting its poor teeth and strained knees, likely due to its size. Jessie deduced that the bull's growth wasn't natural and shared her findings with Nick and the auctioneer. They realized why the auctioneer had called in a panic. Jason, the bull's owner, was likely behind something suspicious. The trio devised a plan to expose Jason without alarming him. They quietly canceled the auction, but let Jason believe everything was proceeding as planned. On the auction day, Jason, excited about the potential profit, followed his usual routine. After tending to his other bulls, he arrived early and prepared his prized animal for display. However, as the event's start time approached, he noticed the place was deserted. Searching for the auctioneer, he found all the doors locked. Hearing sirens, Jason was relieved, believing someone had come to help. He shouted and kicked the doors to get attention. When the police arrived and opened the door, Jason's relief was short-lived. They handcuffed him immediately. Confused, he was led to a police cruiser, where he saw Jessie pointing out details on his bull to the authorities. Photographers captured the evidence. Jason realized he had been caught. Jessie had uncovered that Jason had illegally bred different bull species to achieve the massive size, causing the animal unnecessary suffering. The authorities arrested Jason for animal abuse, and the bull was taken to a sanctuary where it could live out its days peacefully.